Hey everybody, welcome back to the Teching 101 video. You know the video about the stuff, the One Piece related stuff. A new arc in One Piece. I'm a Straw Hat sailing into a climate zone of a new island. Apparently it's a severely winter island because it's very, very cold. Nami was in a parka, she's freezing. Chopper, they're going, but it is very cold. And as they were approaching the island, a giant warm eddy appeared out of the ocean, and the way it was described was it basically looked like a giant lollipop or an afro, as Brooke stated, coming out of the ocean, right? And so the Straw Hats were going to avoid it so they didn't get sucked in, but then with Luffy and Sanji's observation haki, they sensed that there was someone trapped inside of the current, so Zoro sliced it in half. Chopper walked outside, and because he was wearing the Casa hat that Tama made for him, he got flung off the side of the Sunny like a giant sail. Luffy grabbed him, he got flung off as well, and then as that was happening, Jory Bonnie just pops out of the current, and everyone's like, what? And then, like, that was the end of the chapter. So considering, you know, we already had the chapters where a lot of crazy stuff happens, as is the case with in-between story arcs, and now we're back with the Straw Hats again, I'm going to assume, and there's no break this week, I'm going to assume that the next chapter is going to kick off the new story arc. It's going to start with Luffy and Chopper rescuing Jory Bonnie and then getting back on the Sunny, and then they're going to talk a little bit. I think that's what the next chapter is mainly going to be about. Bonnie explaining who she is. Maybe we might find out what her devil fruit is called finally. She might reveal something about the Sorbet Kingdom. She might reveal stuff that happened at Reverie at Marijois. How did she get from Marijois all the way out into the middle of the New World, you know, inside of an ocean current? That's a little confusing. I feel like that's going to be mainly the discussion for the next chapter, and I could also see at the very end of the next chapter, the Straw Hats, like, as they're talking to Bonnie, like, Frankie is like, you know, well, I guess no, he's not the helmsman anymore. That would be Jinbei. Jinbei is driving the Sunny. He's driving the Sunny, just like, hey, everybody, that's great that you're having a conversation and you're learning about all this great lore, but, you know, land ho, we're coming up on a new island, you know, where should I park the Sunny, Luffy? I don't know, just go over there, you know. It's like, all right, hold on, beep, 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 beep. He backs the Sunny into the parking space, and it's like, all right, put the e-brake on, all right, everybody get out, you know, like, so I think that's how it's going to go, all right? So, yeah, before we talk about, like, you know, specifically what island this might be, you know, let's talk about Bonnie, because I think she is going to be the most central figure of this whole thing. I'm going to assume that Bonnie is going to play a critical role in this upcoming arc, which is also going to involve the fourth road poneglyph. Bonnie is one of the last members of the worst generation, or the supernovas that haven't, but the two remaining supernovas that we don't really know anything about, haven't really been focused on, were Bonnie and Rouge. Bonnie might not have anything to do with the island the Straw Hats are reaching. I mean, she's always either, like, reading a newspaper or she's crying, and she's like, you know, I won't forgive them, no matter what, I won't forgive them, and it's always out of, like, it's, like, not specific on who she's referring to. Like, she definitely has a connection with Kuma. Let's just cover that really briefly with Bonnie's character, the few things we do know about her. So, at Reverie, while she was in her old lady form, which may very well be her, like, original form, Bonnie has a devil fruit that allows her to manipulate her own age at will, as well as the ages of those around her. We don't exactly know that. We don't know the name of it, and we don't know how, like, the mechanism works. Yeah, so for that reason, also, we don't know how old she actually is. I'm going to assume that because she assumed her old lady form at the Reverie, and she was identified as the Queen Dowager Connie of the Sorbet Kingdom, she was recognized. I'm going to assume that is her actual age, okay? That being said, on her connection with Kuma, this can actually go one of two different ways. The way that I think makes the most sense, and considering how Bonnie was so dedicated to, you know, when she went into Marijois and she saw the state that Kuma was in as a PX0 and as a slave being used as a pack mule for the Tenryubito, she was very, very upset by that, and she was like, I'll never forgive them. I'm like, okay, great. And, you know, that's like her catchphrase at this point. But anyway, yeah, so she sees that, and she's like, I gotta help him in some way. I'm thinking that Kuma is Bonnie's child. I'm thinking how this went was that Connie married the king of the Sorbet Kingdom, and they ruled for a while, and then they had a child. They had Kuma, and then eventually Connie or Bonnie's husband died. The king died, and then Kuma became the next king. And there's another way you could look at it where you could say that, like, maybe Bonnie and Kuma, maybe they were the king and queen, because we know Kuma was the former king of the Sorbet Kingdom. That's already been confirmed, I'm pretty sure. So it might have been a situation where maybe Kuma and Bonnie were, you know, married, and then something happened where Kuma died. Now, he didn't actually die, but maybe he faked his death, or the Sorbet Kingdom believed him to be dead, and so that's when he left to go join the Revolutionary Army in some way. Although that wouldn't really work so much because maybe Vegapunk programmed it in as, like, whoever issues Kuma an order, he has to obey. And what if the situation happened where the revolutionaries break in, they get Kuma back, and they issue Kuma an order like, Kuma, you have to send everybody away. Get us all out of here. Send us back to these islands or whatever. And Kuma's like, yes, I will obey. Boop, and then sends them flying, okay? And that's how they escaped Reverie. That's how they got away from Marijois. So that's a pretty fair way of understanding how Jewelry Bonnie escaped that, because even if she managed to escape out of, like, you know, the immediate threat of, like, Fujitora and Aramaki attacking, she still has to escape the Red Line. She still has to get down, you know, from the Red Port back down into sea level. There. Oh, there's also been a thing, and this is going back to Devil Fruit weaknesses, because Bonnie was in the current, because she was in the water, and she was in her kid form, and because Devil Fruit users can't use their powers in water, people think that, like, oh, that must mean that that is her original form as the kid, not like the old lady. That's not how Devil Fruit power weaknesses work in water. You know, it's sort of like when Chopper got knocked into the water after he was in Monster Point. If that's the way it worked, then he should have turned back into his Walk Point, into his regular reindeer form, and he didn't. Chopper in his Monster Point got knocked into the water by Frankie at Ennie's Lobby, and he turned back into his Brain Point. Okay, so that's not really how Devil Fruit powers work. When a Devil Fruit user gets submerged in water high enough, like completely submerged like Bonnie did, they get weak and they basically pass out, and if you can't breathe underwater, like if you're not a fishman or a merfolk, you will end up dying eventually, right? So in this situation, but it doesn't turn off a Devil Fruit power. So what it really means to me is that whatever happened where Bonnie got, you know, into this giant warm eddy current, she was already in her kid form, and then, you know, maybe the boat capsized and she got into the water, and then it turned into the giant current, and then she couldn't turn into another form. She couldn't do anything else. She was, like, losing consciousness, and she couldn't, you know, she couldn't really use her powers. But it's not really how it works. You know, it'll be like a question and answer kind of series. Thanks for watching. Teching, signing out. Later.